former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld has just released his new book and is giving the proceeds to injured soldiers. Now, he wouldn't have to give proceeds to injured soldiers if there were no injured soldiers, and there would be no injured soldiers if Bush and Rumsfeld have engaged the 9/11 aftermath appropriately. And what I mean by that is, in Rumsfeld interview that I heard recently on the radio, he described the war on terror to be anything but a war on the religion of Islam. So as long as the religion of Islam is provoking a war with us, and we're not going to fight a war with Islam, then we're going to lose the war, and we're going to receive these casualties. The naive idea that you're going to introduce democracy into a Muslim environment is not just naive, but it defies common sense and it defies logic itself, because if the American State Department has the proper knowledge of what Islam really is and how it works, they would have known right up front that this is not going to work. You can't introduce democracy to Islam. The two things are diametrically opposed. Islam, by definition and by practice, eliminates any possibility of this kind of democratic government that the United States seems to try to project onto the Islamic people over in the Middle East. I found that Bush and Rumsfeld extremely coward. That's how I'm going to describe it. Now, I'm not saying that, of course, Obama and Gates aren't any better. In fact, Obama is many times worse, in that at least Bush and Rumsfeld had this, although it's an ill-informed vision of democracy in the Muslim countries. I think that Obama is not really all that concerned about the democracy dynamic, as he is allowing Islam to take its course, which is going to gravitate towards the teachings of Muhammad and the practice of Muhammad, which is domination and forced subjection, forced submission to his whims and his teachings. The things that the Sharia law is founded on, the Hadith and the practices of Muhammad. So you can't. The two things don't mix. And the reason I'm calling Bush and Rumsfeld cowards is because they should have known this, and instead they cowardly redefined Islam. Okay, and you can see Rumsfeld still doing this. In his interview, he's describing a small handful of radicals have hijacked the religion of Islam. Well, that's absolutely asinine. He's not only, to me, that's not just incompetence. That's deliberate deceit. Nobody could be that stupid. The guy is a total buffoon. He's an idiot. And so is Bush, and so is Obama, of course, and Gates. The whole State Department are a bunch of bumbling buffoons. And what they're doing is they're kicking the can down the road. They're going to, eventually somebody's going to have to take a war up against Islam. And they don't want to do it. And this is why I'm calling this video Burning Your Children to Molech, because they're burning the children on the altar of Molech, because the whole idea, the way they're engaging, Islam is to save the honor of Islam. That's what this is all about. That's why there's American soldiers being killed over there, because we're defending the honor of Islam. We're trying to save the face of Islam. We're trying to save the name of Islam. That's what we're doing over there. That's how they're doing. That's what they're doing. That's how they've defined the terms of our engagement. You could tell this. They ran off to the mosques right after 9/11 to defend the name of Islam. There was one pundit that said there was gridlock in New York City. There's so many politicians and diplomats running off to the nearest mosque to try to save the name of Islam. So instead of warring against Islam, what we're doing is we're sending American men and women to die in the name of Islam, for the sake of Islam, for the honor of Islam, because we don't want to describe Islam for what it is. That Islam is the religion of hate, the religion of death, the religion of destruction, the religion of submitting to the practices and teachings of a illiterate thug, of a pimp named Muhammad, and this is why we're going to lose, and we're going to lose, and we're going to lose, and we're going to continue to lose, and we're going to lose after we lose, because there's nobody with the balls to say, hey, let's have a war with Islam. Now the Dutch are starting to wise up. You got guys like Geert Wilders, who's probably the most brave politician to come along since Winston Churchill, and they, of course, describing him as Winston Churchill. Now he's doing the right thing. He's attacking Islam head on. Now, of course, he's doing it in a more politically tactful way than I would. But he's not all that tactful now that he's in office. For instance, he's fighting for this tax on the wearing of the head covering. If Muslim women want to wear the head covering in public, they pay €1,000 a year for that privilege. That's a smart idea. This is the beginning of confronting Islam head on. Okay, if you want to retain freedom, you can't have freedom and Islam. The two things don't mix. The State Department doesn't understand. I don't think they're just incompetent. I think they're cowards. That's my problem. I don't think this is merely, and that's why, to cleanse his conscience, he's given that money to the soldiers. Rumsfeld is the money from his book he's given to the soldiers, clear his conscience, because he instead of doing the courageous thing and fighting Islam head on, what we should have done right after 9/11. And by the way, Ayan Hirsi Ali is in agreement with what I'm saying here in terms of, after 9/11, you identify the culprit, Islam. You don't make up this stupid, silly nonsense about it was hijacked by a handful of radicals. That's bullshit. We all know it. And so how are we going to win a war if the leaders are approaching it by means of deception? They self-deception. They deceive themselves into into this politically coward position of Islam is been hijacked by terrorists. We lost. As soon as they said that, we lost. And Bush should have dropped. There should have been mushroom clouds coming up from Saudi Arabia within 72 hours of 9/11. There should have been a letter given to all Muslims, mosques, leaders, the imams in Islam, say, you have these options. You take your flock out of Islam to some other religion, or you leave the country. There is no Islam in the free world. And, okay, they're not doing it. Bush, Obama, Rumsfeld, Gates betray us. They're not doing this. They're going to leave it to some other generation. Okay, now I'm willing to do that. If I could run for president, become president, this is what I would do. The first thing, the first line of duty would be to eradicate Islam. Now, Islam should be eradicated worldwide for the sake of the people who are subjected to it involuntarily. We should be eradicating Islam in the same way that the world wants to eradicate poverty, eradicate hunger, eradicate disease. Well, it's obvious that Islam fits into those categories. It's a scourge, needs eradication. It does not need this pussified wimps cowering. And of course, Obama's a lot worse. But Bush made me want to puke when he started talking about millions of Muslims finding peace and solace in the religion of Islam. That's that's defeatism. He's and by the way, where those millions of Muslims going to end up? They're going to end up in hell. They don't have a savior. You can't call yourself a Christian and promote and condone people following a false prophet. That is sort of besides the point. But it speaks to the this whole issue of what politicians are like today. That they will burn our children on the altar of Molech to prevent themselves from having to face very difficult, and it's only difficult in the sense of it takes a lot of courage. Okay, they were afraid that they didn't have the courage, so they redefined the war against Islam and called it a war against terrorists, and the terrorists have nothing to do with true Islam. See, this is totally ignorant. It's totally nonsense, and it's total self-deception. And not only are they deceiving themselves, they're trying to deceive everybody else and make us go along for the ride and pay for it. Well, sooner or later, we got to face the fact. There's going to be somebody who's going to want to stand up and say, okay, well, let's fight this war the way it was supposed to be fought to begin with. They didn't have the courage. They are going to leave it to somebody else to actually clean up this mess. Here's what I'm thinking. Let's suppose you were in Great Britain in the early 40s, like 1943, and the Prime Minister said, "Well, we're going to have to bomb Berlin." And they said, "Well, we can't do that. The Germans are going to get mad at us." Well, this is what we're hearing. When people like myself and Tom Tedesco says, "Let's bomb Mecca, Medina," we can't do that. The Muslims are going to get mad. Well, what the hell does that mean? Who cares? Of course they're going to get mad. This is a war. What do you think? They're not going to get mad? This is war. You got to defeat them. You can't. What we're doing. It's gotten me angry ever since 9/11, and now that Rumsfeld put his book out, I figured this is the appropriate time to describe the situation in terms of truth and reality. So what we need to do is, I think, pick up the rhetoric and continue to insist on a war with Islam. Now, one of the reasons that people are so easily fooled into thinking that's not appropriate is because of this thing called freedom of religion. But you must understand, freedom of religion is only useful if you're in an environment of freedom. And since Islam, by definition, works against an environment of freedom, then obviously you can't extend freedom of religion to Islam. It doesn't apply. Now, why am I the one who's saying this thing? I mean, I think there are some other people. But, sooner or later, it's going to come down to that, where somebody, like myself, is going to say, okay, this is what we need to do. And people are going to eventually, come to that realization. So, and I'm concerned about, look, obviously I don't hate Muslims, because what I'm talking about is freeing them from Islam. Islam is killing them. Islam is destroying their lives. And Islam will destroy their hereafter, by the way, as well. So, because I'm so concerned, this is why I want to eradicate Islam, to save, millions, billions of people from the scourge of Islam that is destroying. Plus, you got the whole angle of the Western society and freedom that's under attack by Islam. You have, unfortunately, and anybody that's gone to university knows this. You don't even have to go to the university. You know that for the longest time there's been a move to educate people against the Judeo-Christian civilization, that the Judeo-Christian civilization is evil, it needs to be destroyed. And now that Islam's come along, these world leaders has seen that Islam is a useful tool in that direction. So, in addition to everything else, you got the whole much of academia and, of course, journalism that loves Islam because they know that Islam is a force to destroy Judeo-Christian civilization. And I think that's what's really, really deeper behind all this in terms of the spiritual warfare angle of this. You have enemies of the God of the Bible. The enemies of the God of the Bible are the people that run, for instance, the school system in America that Christians pay for. Christians are funding their own destruction. The people who own all the major media and journalist outlets are enemies of the God of the Bible. I want to see the Judeo-Christian civilization destroyed. And so, these two teams, Islam and the anti-God of the Bible, the anti-Yahwehists, are ganging up on us. And if we continue to be coward and try to save the face of Islam and save ourselves at the same time, it's not going to happen. It's either going to be us or Islam. Now, there's a lot of people that would like this whole issue to just go away, but unfortunately, it's not going to. I myself don't like, really, I'm not all that politically active. I don't like to get involved in these kinds of things, but I see what's going on. I like to tell the truth, and you can see that where Islam conquers, it destroys Western civilization and those values. And those values brought us a lot of great things in terms of arts and culture. And so even somebody who wants to just kick back and stay out of the fray and continue to do their artwork or their whatever it is they're enjoying in terms of culture, they're not going to be able to continue to do it. An example, like for instance, somebody who's a musician, when a full expression of Islam is going to silence the music. Somebody who's an artist, you cannot make images. Now you're the only thing you'll be relegated to Arabic calligraphy and Persian carpet designs or something to that effect. And the whole music and arts aspect of Western civilization will be destroyed, along with all the other freedoms that we've enjoyed under Judeo-Christian civilization. And that's why I'm concerned about it. I mean, basically, it's waking up a sleeping giant. I don't like, really, I'm not all that interested in politics and those kinds of things. But, it's good to have somebody, and I'm certainly not the only one, but I think that more of us who come out and just say it. I got in an argument with a guy who was come back from Afghanistan. He's been indoctrinated with all the bull crap that they're teaching over there in the military about how Islam is a religion of peace and those kinds of things. I let him have it. I'm not I'm not interested in bullcrap. I want to the truth is, if you either destroy Islam or Islam destroys you. That's all. Period. End of sentence.